Most business owners think that if they've built a profitable company, they'll be able to exit it one day. But the truth is that 80% of businesses fail to sell. Not because they're bad businesses, but because they've been built for cash flow and ownership and not for equity and exit. So in this video, I'll be breaking down the two types of businesses, one which fails to sell and the other one which has buyers lining up waiting to buy it. If you want to sell your business in the next 1 to 5 years, click the link in the description and I'll value your business and give you a pathway to increase that valuation. Now let's get rid of one false assumption. The assumption is that profit equals value. Now profit, of course, is the driving force of every business and every valuation, but profit doesn't equal value. The type of profit that you built equals the value that it produces in what we call enterprise value. Enterprise value essentially is the valuation of a business. So let's take a look at the case of two businesses, both with 500,000 of profit, but one is a cash flow business and the other one is built for equity. One business, the cash flow business, might only be worth £1 million or $1 million on exit, while the other one is valued at 2 million, double the value. Why? Because it's been built in the correct way and that profit is demonstrated to investors and buyers in a different way. Now, before we can understand why one might only be worth $1 million while the other one is worth 2, 3, or even 4 million, is we need to understand the components of business first. So every business, as you know, you're a business owner, has three main components: marketing, sales, and service or product delivery. Marketing, to get customers to know about the business; sales, to convert that awareness into actual sales, actual money; and then the delivery of that product and service. Each three of these components of a business also have two layers. It has two layers. One layer is the delivery of the marketing, the delivery of the sales, and the delivery or the fulfillment of that product or service. And the other one is the management of the marketing, the management of the sales, and the management of the product or deliveries of the service. So three components and two layers. So let's get into the cash flow business. And by the way, if you own a cash flow business, there's no problem because you're making money for yourself, right? And if you own an equity business, then there's also no problem because you're also making money for yourself. All it is, the end result when you want to exit is going to have a different outcome. So the cash flow business is built for ownership of a business today and the maximum cash extraction from that business to the owner. And the way that a business is normally able to do that, or a business owner is normally able to extract a lot of cash from the business, is to be involved in the management, one layer of those three components. So be involved in the management of those marketing and the sales and the delivery, or also be involved in the actual fulfillment of the marketing, sales, and delivery. The owner is doing a lot of that work. So therefore, they don't have to pay the salaries that would normally have to be paid to another employee because they're already managing the business. So they don't have to pay a manager, they're paying themselves. They're doing the marketing, so they don't have to pay for marketing other than, for example, ads. But they're doing a lot of that themselves. They don't have to do this, don't have to pay a salesperson because they're selling to customers themselves. And they also don't have to pay for the products or the service delivery because they are the ones who is fulfilling on that promise to the customer. So all of those salaries are now being extracted or kept within the business, and therefore the owners are able to take some. Now, of course, if you're doing everything yourself, you don't have a business, you just have a job, you're just a freelancer. But there are going to be elements that you're going to start hiring people because that's how you're going to grow your income. Generally speaking, cash flow businesses top out at around about £1 million or $1 million a year, depending on two main things. Number one, how much of the actual fulfillment is the owner doing, and also how much of the management is the owner doing. And the second thing is also the ticket size of your product or service. Of course, if you've only got a really small ticket size of product and service, you can't be involved in the fulfillment of all of that because you're not going to be earning a lot of money at all. Your average ticket size is below 1,000. You're going to have to hire people to be able to fulfill for you. But if you've got a ticket price which is going into 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 or above, yes, you can start making a decent amount of money, even though you're fulfilling it. But aside, as a business owner, you're probably hiring people for the fulfillment immediately. You might still be involved in the marketing and the sales and the management. And that's also fine. That's when you'll get to your million. That's when you might even get to 2 million. Now, you can exceed the 1 to 2 million a year if you hire out some of the management as well. So those types of businesses, you'll be making good profit margins, because remember, the salaries are not having to pay out a lot of salaries because you're doing the work yourself. So you're able to pay yourself as a business owner. But that type of business is a cash flow business. And when buyers see that kind of business, they don't see a transferable asset. What they see is key man risk, and they see business risk. Why? Because you're doing the sales, you're doing the marketing, you're doing the management, you might be doing the fulfillment. Whichever area you're doing, when a person who's looking to buy your business is looking at your business and saying, yeah, great, this business is making 500,000 a year in profit, the owner's taking that for themselves. But what happens when I take the owner out of this business? What happens to that business? There's too many question marks. There are too many people that need to be hired. There's too many changes that need to be made to that business. And therefore, that's why that type of business, the cash flow business, gets hit on valuation. Great for long-term ownership, great for cash flow extraction. But if you're bored of your business, if you're tired of your business, if you're burnt out from your business, if you're coming up to retirement, if God forbid something happens where your health changes and you're having to forced to look at your business in a different way, what happens at that stage when you want to sell? Now, if push comes to shove, you're going to have to sell at a lower price. And that might be the right thing to do for you. But if you've built this engine, this profit machine, if you've built this revenue center, this profit center, then the best thing to do is to start putting a plan in place to sell that business one day. You might not want to sell it today, but if you want to sell it in the future, then you at least got the plan to put in place so you can sell it. So that's a cash flow business, very good for owners and very good for cash flow extraction. Now let's take a look at the second type of business, the equity business. The equity business is typically focused around a brand. So that's why you'll find a lot of cash flow businesses that have the name of the owner, and it's around a personality and it's around a person, and the person's doing a lot of the work. With the equity business, everything's centered around a brand. Take a look at Microsoft, take a look at Apple, take a look at any of the big, Ford, for example. I know it's Henry Ford, but it's a just one part of the name. It's not centered around a person anymore. It's centered around a brand. It's centered around a product. It's centered around a service. So when you think of Ford, you do think of Henry Ford, but you think of the car, right? When you think of Apple, you don't think of what's the guy's name? Steve Jobs, right? You think of the iPhone. Where's my iPhone? I think it's in my pocket. But anyway, you think of the iPhone, you think of Macs, right? So you have to ensure that if you're building equity business, it's centered around the brand and it's centered around the product and service that it delivers for its customers and consumers. The next thing that an equity business does is that it takes the owner out of the three components of the business. So let's take a look at Samsung. Samsung is the family name of the family of Samsung. Now, the name is still the name of the family, but what they've done is that they've taken themselves out of the marketing. They've taken themselves out of the sales. They've taken themselves out of the product and the service delivery. Same thing for Ford. It's the surname of Henry Ford and the Ford family. However, it's been taken out of the marketing, it's been taken out of the sales, it's been taken out of the product or the service delivery, in those cases, the product delivery. So if you're able to come out of the day-to-day running, what I call an operational exit, and by the way, an operational exit is the minimum level of exit required for you to be able to exit your business. You go from operations to strategic owner in your business, but that's a story for another video. You take yourselves out of the components, and ideally you want to take yourselves out of the management of those components as well. That's when a business becomes scalable, infinitely scalable. And that's when buyers look at a business and say, right, this business is actually worth something. Why? Because the owner's not involved, and I can put in more people, or I can put in more processes, I can put in more technology, I can put in more resources into this business, and I can scale it to a level which is much bigger than what it is now. And that's why buyers pay bigger multiples. They add a multiple to your profit. Earlier, when I was saying that you've got two businesses worth 500,000, but one is only or doing 500,000 profit, but one is only worth 1 million, while the other is worth 2, 3, 4, 5 million, is because the buyers, when they're looking at your businesses, investors, when they're looking at these businesses, they're looking at this profit and they're putting a multiple on it based on the scalability of that profit, based on the reliability of that profit, based on the transferability of that profit. This last one is key, the transferability of that profit. So that's what equity businesses do above cash flow businesses. They're creating a team that has roles, it has responsibilities, and it has reports which are independent from any one personality, especially the owner. So it's about building systems. It's about building systems that outlast any one individual or any number of individuals, and they can be transferred. Now, with equity businesses, the margins are normally a little bit lower. The exception to that is, of course, software, because it's an infinitely sellable product. You don't have to produce more software to be able to sell that. You just create usernames, essentially, and sometimes services as well. But the multiples that buyers attach to those margins are much higher. Why? Because you're not involved. That's ultimately what it's about. And individual people are not relied on. So that becomes interesting to buyers, that becomes interesting to investors, and that's why they put a higher multiple on your profit. So let's do some math here. So let's say your business is currently doing 500,000 in profit per year, and you are an equity business. Then they might put a 3 times multiple on your business, where your business is worth 1.5 million. If you're able to demonstrate transferability and reliability, they might put a 4 times multiple on your profit, and therefore your business is worth $2 million or £2 million. Let's take a look at another business. Let's say it's doing 1 million in profit. That business is also a bigger business, is generating profit which is now in the millions, and therefore the multiple automatically goes a little bit higher, and maybe the starting point of that business is 4 times multiple on your profit. So 1 million a year business is now worth 4 million, is now worth 5 million if a 5x multiple is put on that profit. Now, where it really gets interesting is when your business starts doing 3 to 5 million or above. It depends on what type of industry you're in, whether it's 3 million or whether it's 5 million. And actually, ultimately, it looks at the ticket price. If your business has a low ticket price on the products and services that it sells, and you're doing at least minimum 3 million, then you start getting to multiples of 5 to 8. So if your business is doing 3 million and they put a minimum of a 5x multiple, your business is worth 15 million pounds or $15 million. That's where it gets interesting. If you're a higher ticket pricing, then your profit generally needs to be about 5 times or 5 million before those 5 to 8 times multiples are put in. The exception is software, the exception is SaaS. We're not going to talk about that right now. So if you're doing 5 million in profit and you've got a traditional type of business, product or service business, and you've got a high ticket price, they might put a 6, 7, or even 8 times multiple on the profit. So you could be exiting for up to 40 million pounds or $40 million, or even more than that, if your business is the right type of business. Now, when it comes down to SaaS and it comes down to software, your multiples are crazy, right? You're looking at 6 plus. 6 is like the baseline minimum. And they don't even look at profit anymore. They start looking at revenue, because your revenue essentially is almost the same as your profit. As long as you're not over hiring and you've got people in your business which you don't need, then they're looking at your revenue and they're putting a multiple of that. And that can be 10 or even 15 times revenue that they're going to pay you for your business, which is absolutely insane. There's never been a time in history where that type of multiple is applied to revenue for any type of business. So if you're in software and you're able to solve a real problem for real businesses and real people, and you've got millions in revenue, then great news for you, because you can sell for a very, very high price. So after all of that doom and gloom for cash flow businesses, then it's not all bad news. The good news is that you can start doing things today to make your business sellable. But the key word is start fixing those problems now. Start working on your business right now. I have the exact blueprint that you need to use if you're an owner operator business, if you're a cash flow business, to turn your business into a high multiple sellable business. So click the link in the description and carry on watching these videos to make your business a sellable business. And I'll see you in the next video.